Good afternoon, students. In today's class, we will be starting with nature and causes of forgetting. So, I have already mentioned about a few things about forgetting, but in today's class, let us learn about what is actually forgetting and how does forgetting happens. So, why do we experience forgetting? Is it because the information we commit to our LTM is somehow lost, or is it because we did not memorize it well enough, or is it because we did not encode the information correctly, or it got distorted or misplaced in our memory store? What exactly happens? Okay, so let us look at that. The first systematic attempt to understand the nature of forgetting was made by Hermann Ebbinghaus, who memorized lists of nonsense syllables. Nonsense syllables as in those words which doesn't make any sense. Okay, so he learned those kind of words. Okay, and then measured the number of trials he took to relearn the same list at varying time intervals. So he took out some nonsense syllables, words that didn't make any sense, uh, and then he measured the number of trials, and he took time to relearn the same list in different time intervals. Okay, and then he observed that the course of forgetting follows a certain pattern, and you can see that in figure 7.3. Okay, so Ebbinghaus curve of forgetting, so you can see in figure 7.3. So he explained forgetting uh, by trying to explain it in a curve. Okay, so, as the figure indicates, the rate of forgetting is maximum in the first 9 hours, okay, particularly during the first hour. After that, the rate slows down and not much is forgotten even after many days. Although his experiments constituted initial explorations and were not very sophisticated, yet they have influenced memory research in many important ways. It is now upheld almost unanimously that there is a always sharp drop in memory, and thereafter the decline is very gradual. So usually what happens is that if you try to remember certain new informations, okay, so in the first hour you are going to forget a lot of things, but things that you remember after that hour, those you are going to retain. Okay, suppose you are learning 100 new words. Okay, and then out of those 100 new words, you will forget say 20 words in the first hour only, but after 9 hours you may forget maybe 5 more words, but not more than that, and the other words that you have remembered, that you will remember after days also. Okay, so forgetting happens in the initial stages more. The others which you remember even after hours, those are going to retain in your memory store. Okay, so now this has been established with other experiments as well. Okay, now let us look at some other theories of forgetting. So the first one is forgetting due to trace decay. So trace decay is also known as your disuse theory. Okay, so this is one of the earliest theories of forgetting. So here there is an assumption which is made, is that our memory leads to modification in the central nervous system, which is akin to physical changes in the brain called memory traces. Okay, so memory leads to modification in our central nervous system, which leads to physical changes in our brain, and it is known as memory traces. Okay, so we have this thing called memory traces in our brain. Okay, due to the physical changes which happens because of modification in the central nervous system. So when these memory traces are not used for a long time, which is in our brain, they simply fade away and become unavailable. So according to this theory only, okay, that if these memory traces that we have in our brains, if it is not used for a long time, then they are going to simply fade away and become unavailable. But then this theory has been proved inadequate on several grounds. That is, this theory had many shortcomings. How? Let us look at that. So, if forgetting takes place because memory traces decay due to disuse, that is, we are not using it, then people who go to sleep after memorizing should forget more compared to those who remain awake. Suppose day after tomorrow you have your exam, or tomorrow you have your exam, you have memorized things. Then tomorrow morning, if you get proper sleep, okay, then tomorrow morning you are going to remember it better than someone who has studied for the whole night. We all know that, right? You are always being told that, that you have to get a good sleep so that you remember whatever you have studied properly the next day, rather than someone who has studied the whole night. This happens. So, if we are to believe this theory, then according to this theory, if we are not using these memory traces, then it is going to become unavailable. But if that is the case, then if we go back to sleep after remembering certain things, tomorrow morning we won't remember it well, right? But then that doesn't happen, but the opposite happens. If we memorize something, we get a good sleep, then tomorrow morning we are going to remember it even better, okay? So here, this theory has shortcomings, okay? The opposite actually happens. So, because trace decay theory did not explain forgetting adequately, it was soon replaced by another theory of forgetting, which suggested that the new information that enters the long-term memory interferes with the recall of earlier memories, and therefore interference is the main cause of forgetting. Okay, so there are a lot of informations that we collect from the outside world. So according to this theory, what happens is that we already know certain things, and when there are more informations we collect, then this old information that we already have and the new information that we are collecting, those are going to interfere with each other and forgetting can happen. Okay, so how? Let us look at this theory in details. The theory of forgetting due to interference assumes that learning and memorizing involve forming of associations between items, and once acquired, these associations remain intact in memory. People keep acquiring numerous such associations, and each of these rests independently without any mutual conflict. However, interference comes about a time of retrieval when these various sets of associations compete with each other for retrieval. So, see, sometimes what happens, like we have already studied before, that to memorize certain things, we make associations from the information that we already have before. Okay, so if you are to remember the name of a new fruit, then you are going to make an association uh, about the new fruit with a fruit that you already know. Okay, so we definitely make certain kind of associations. Okay, but sometimes this association becomes interference. Okay, like you already know a certain thing and you are trying to remember a new thing, but then you may get confused between these two things. Okay, so this interference process will become clearer with a simple exercise. So you can ask your friend uh, to learn to separate list of nonsense syllables. Okay, so nonsense syllables as in those words which will not make any sense. You can make two lists, A and list B. Okay, list A and B, one after the other, and after a while you can ask him or her to recall the nonsense syllables of list A. If while trying to recall the items of list A, he or she recalls some items of list B, it is because of the association formed while learning list B are interfering with the earlier association which were formed while learning list A. Okay, so now you are asking your friend to learn two lists, list A and list B. Both have nonsense labels, that is words which do not make any sense. So you are asking your friend to learn two lists, but while remembering the nonsense labels of list B, your friend may recall some words from list A as well, which he or she has learned before. So because we are here making the association between list A and B. So while trying to recall the words from list B, your friend is going to recall some words from list A as well, because there is association, because there is interference. So we are going to mix the words of these two lists while remembering. Okay, so this is what interference is. Okay, so there are at least two kinds of interferences that may result in forgetting. So this particular thing may result in forgetting as well. I am asking you to recall words from list B, but you are recalling words from list A as well. So that results in forgetting as well. So there are two kinds of interference which may result in forgetting. Interference can be proactive, that is forward moving, which means what you have learned earlier interferes with the recall of your subsequent learning, or retroactive, that is backward moving, which refers to difficulty in recalling what you have learned earlier because of learning a new material. Okay, so in other words, in proactive interference, past learning interferes with the recall of later learning, while in retroactive interference, the later learning interferes with the recall of past learning. So now you may get confused here, but when I will give you an example, then it is going to be clear. Okay, so suppose you know the in language English from before only. Okay, and now you are trying to learn French, but you are finding it difficult to learn French because you already know English. Okay, so it is because of proactive interference. And see, here you already know the language English and you are being asked to learn the language French, but because you know names of certain things in English, and then again learning French becomes difficult because you know the names of certain things in English. Okay, so you are finding difficult to learn French, you are not able to memorize it, you are forgetting those French words, then it is because of proactive interference. Okay, this is known as proactive interference because you already know English, that's why you are finding difficulty in learning French. So this is proactive interference. But on the other hand, you are learning new French words. Okay, but because you are learning the names of new things in French, you are forgetting the English words for the same things. Then it is now this will be known as retroactive interference. You are learning the new words, the new material, the new language, that is French, but then you are forgetting the English words of the same things. So you are forgetting what you have learned before and memorizing the new one. Okay, so this is known as your retroactive interference. Okay, so keep this example in mind about proactive interference, what is proactive interference and what is retroactive interference. Okay, so you can also check table 7.1 if you want to learn it, if you want some more examples. Okay, now let us move on to forgetting due to retrieval failure. Okay, so forgetting can occur not only because the memory traces have decayed over time, or because independent sets of stored associations compete at the time of recall. So it's not always because decaying of memory traces, or it's not just because of interference between memories, okay, but it can also be because at the time of recall, either the retrieval cues are absent or they are inappropriate. While you are trying to recall, you are unable to recall because the retrieval cues are absent or they are inappropriate. Let us see how, okay? So, what are retrieval cues? So, retrieval cues are aids which help us in recovering information stored in the memory, okay? So, this view was advanced by Tulping and his associates, who carried out several experiments to show that contents of memory may become inaccessible either due to absence or inappropriateness of retrieval cues that are available or employed at the time of recall. So, we do need certain things um, to recall our memory, to recall certain things down from our memory lane, okay? So those are your retrieval cues. So let us understand this with an example, okay? So suppose you have memorized a list of meaningful words like heart, wasp, cottage, gold, bronze, ant, etc., in which words belong to 6 categories like places of living, names of insects, types of metal, etc. If after a while you are asked to recall those, you may recall a couple of them, but if during the second recall attempt you are also provided with category names, then you may find that your recall is near total. Category names in this example act as retrieval cues. Besides category names, the physical context in which you learn also provides effective retrieval cues. So see, here categorizing these words becomes your retrieval cues. And also sometimes if you remember when you were younger, you were in class 2 3, then your books were full of pictures, okay? So you will see different images, colored images. So now if I ask you names of certain animals and how do they look, then you are going to recall the that particular image which you had in your class 3 book or class 2 book, okay? So those pictures act as retrieval cues. So these are retrieval cues, categorizing or the pictures you have seen, all these are your retrieval cues. So sometimes if these retrieval cues uh, are not correct, inappropriate, then there are chances that you are not going to recall it properly, okay? And then forgetting may take place, okay? So these are the theories of forgetting. In the next slide, let us briefly talk about repressed memories. So I think you all remember Sigmund Freud and his theory of the conscious and unconscious. So according to Sigmund Freud, what happens is that in our unconscious, we repress a lot of painful, threatening and embarrassing memories which we do not want to remember in our conscious awareness, okay? So sometimes what happens is that some people, they experience very traumatic events, okay, and that gives rise to psychological amnesia. So amnesia is basically it's like when you don't that there is this phase where you, or you can say period, when you do not remember what you have done, okay? So you may go into a state of fugue, that particular period where you have done something but you don't remember whatever you have done when you are conscious, okay? So if you have watched movies or read books, okay, about this particular disorder, which is popularly known as multiple personality disorder, but then according to psychological terms, it is known as dissociative identity disorder. So there are some people who do not have just one personality, they have more than one personalities, and these personalities, they do not know each other. Okay, so there are many movies on it also. So that there is one personality in during the day, there is another personality during the night. Okay, so and they don't know nothing about each other. So certain these psychological amnesia leads to these different kinds of personality in one person, and this happens because of repressed memories. We have such painful, threatening and embarrassing memories within us, which gives rise to this disorder. Okay, so if you want to know in details, I can give you more details, but in your book this much information is given, so I won't go into more details. Okay, so forgetfulness or loss of memory under stress and high anxiety is not uncommon. So keeping aside this dissociative identity disorder in our day-to-day lives also, sometimes it happens. No, we say that, oh, I have studied so well, but then I went completely blank during my examination. So why does that happen? Forgetfulness happens because of high anxiety also. You are so anxious that even though you have studied so many things, but you cannot recall anything when you are asked those questions in your examination. Okay, so it can happen because of high anxiety also. Forgetfulness can happen because of high anxiety as well. Okay, so this is all about forgetfulness. Why do we forget? How does forgetting happens? And also it can lead to various disorders, so which is not given in your book in details, but I have just explained to you all briefly. So I will end my class here. If you have any doubts or queries, please feel free to ask. Okay, I will be available. Thank you and have a nice day ahead.